All right, everybody. Well, I think we'll go ahead and get started. First of all, thanks for joining. I know this is kind of the time of the season where everyone's getting very busy and also very tired. So appreciate everyone being on today. And really, I want to just give a quick update and talk a little bit about desiccation, and then I kind of figure we'll do something kind of similar to last month where started with just general agronomy. And so I see Joseph Oakes is on, so we'll kind of split that. And I know Olga said she's not going to be able to make it today. And then we'll go through for soil fertility next, and then weed control, plant pathology, and then finally Tim can have some time to introduce yourself. And then we'll just kind of have any updates from anybody else who's got something to share and kind of just some time to discuss. So with that, I'm going to go ahead and share my screen. So I wanted to talk about soybean desiccation because I'm starting to get some questions about that. And basically, that is the idea of using paraquat or some other similar herbicide to expedite soybean harvest. So I'd be curious to know if how many of y'all are getting those questions. I know Scott Ryder had some questions on that recently that we were talking about. But it's kind of a trendy thing that is starting to come from the mid-south and move upward. So really the idea is trying to hit soybeans at about that R6.5 growth stage. So that's really important to not hit it too early and kill your crop before it is done harvesting. So this is a publication from LSU that I just like this picture here. So basically you can see R6 here where you still got that white membrane across the soybean pods. And so this is too early. You really want to wait until that membrane separates, and that's that R6.5 growth stage. And then once you see that, that's the key to that would be your good timing. If you're waiting past that, you got to be careful to make sure that it's going to be useful to actually expedite that harvest. So that's the key growth stage there. And then really as far as what else to consider would be what source you wanted to use. And there's a couple of different options for sources. The most common is paraquat. And so I was looking at the paraquat label earlier, and the one thing I will say is it is a 15-day pre-harvest interval. And so that's something to be considerate of because by the time you've 15 days after you've sprayed that, it might already be shattering. So, whether you're following the label or not, something to be aware of, and just following those rates and those recommendations if you're using paraquat or whatever your source is. So not a whole lot of research on the East Coast has been done on this. And so if this is a topic that y'all are getting a lot of questions about, we can try to investigate that more locally. But if it's not a widespread interest, then we may just rely on colleagues in those areas that are really doing this. So wanted to share that. And then while I'm sharing my screen, I wanted to also share, I've got this survey that I'll share this link in the chat, but really would like your feedback as far as if these meetings are helpful and if we want to continue them and how long we want to continue them. If we want to have these across the entire year or just growing season or what would be best suited. So I'll share that link in the chat. So that's pretty much what I wanted to share. And then additionally, I wanted to say I am planning on continuing some of the potassium response trials. So if you have any cooperators that have low soil test potassium or potentially following hay or corn silage or some situation that would get a good potassium response, I would be very interested in talking about having some trials in those locations next year. So kind of starting to plan ahead. And if you know of anybody that would be a good fit for that, let me know. So with that, that's about all I wanted to share. If you've got any questions about that desiccation or any other anything else, we can either talk about it now or save it to the end. But otherwise, I'll kind of pass it over to Dr. Oakes.
Hey, I don't have a lot. I'll just echo that. I've seen what you were just saying. I've seen that more this year. It seems like, at least a lot of the soybeans around here are hanging on a lot longer. You'll see, where it looks like most of the plant is mature, but then there's either super green stems or some of the pods on the lower ends of the plant are still super green. So not really sure why that is, but I have seen that in some fields this year on varieties I know that are very early are maturing varieties that are tending to hang on a lot longer than they previously had. So other than that, I don't have a whole lot here today. So
All right, thanks. Yeah, I don't know exactly what's going on, but interest seems to be starting with it. So curious to see how widespread that is. But so we'll pass it over to Lydia for kind of a soil fertility general agronomy update from you.
Yeah, thanks, Carrie. And I am gonna try to share my screen. Can you see my screen now? Maybe?
Yes,
Yeah.
I can.
Okay, wonderful. Okay, so I have a couple of updates, and also I just wanted to share because I feel like there's been some questions, but the goals of the program that I'm working with, I just wanted to point out to agents that the whole purpose, number one, is to help our agency partners, which is extension. And the goal is to help, not hinder. So I say that to say that the program and myself are a resource, and yeah, that's why we're here. So just kind of reminding, I like to remind people of that as often as possible. And I guess that's why I stay busy, because I remind people of that a lot. But I did just also want to point out that if you guys know or work with any of these producers that are shown here, they are a part of our program. And that means that if you want to have them do a field trial, if you want to have them speak at an event, if you want them to host an outreach event or field walk, they are in the system with Virginia Tech. They're a Virginia Tech contractor, and I can pay them directly to help you. And so therefore, it makes it so they can use up more of their time or resources to help because they are being compensated. And that has been pretty effective. And yeah, I want extension to help keep them busy. So just wanted to flash their photos and names up here in case you guys are interested in utilizing them as a resource. So to nutrient management concerns for the fall, I think most producers are finding or found that, the yields are maybe not what they've hoped for in most crops. And as we all know, there's drought, various factors going into there. But regardless, the result is very variable yields across the state. And so this is particularly concerning for some of our nitrogen hungry crops like corn or cotton that you put down that nitrogen hoping the crop was going to take it up, and more than likely it didn't. So there may be some residual nitrogen there, and that can be a concern where you didn't use up what you had anticipated. And so just knowing that there are tools out there like fall nitrate testing, so you can take that and see that snapshot of, hey, what's actually out there? Is this a big concern for me? Is it not? But the other thing is, most of the time you can do a quick calculation between knowing what was applied, what was out there, what they put out, and then what the yield was and the anticipated amount that crop did take up and what could potentially still be out there. So all that to say, if there's ever a year to utilize cover crops to scavenge nutrients, this is the year, because of these very variable yields. And so just if you have producers who have questions, who want to take their cover crops further, who want to get started with cover crops, who aren't sure what to do, and you want to be able to give them some guidance, NRCS has their cover crop guide. There are a lot of great decision-making tools available. I know a lot of producers really like Green Cover Seeds tool that they have. Or you can reach out. There's many specialists who are experts at this. Many of the folks on this call are very knowledgeable. And we also have those farmer advisors, farmer mentors I'd flashed up on the screen, and they can always help answer questions or go out and meet with farmers or help support your program however they can. So that was my main technical piece there. But we are looking forward to winter meetings. And so if you're interested in having a producer speak or having a producer panel or any of that stuff, can be on a variety of topics. And yeah, it's a resource for you guys. So if you're not sure what you want to include in some of the winter producer meetings, yeah, reach out and we'll help any way we can. And then there was a new video series posted that is aimed towards extension agents and our technical staff. Just want to make you guys aware of that. It's on the Virginia Soil Health Coalition's YouTube page. Wanted to bring it up because it is a follow-up to a training that a lot of you agents of the extension agents and different folks had attended in 2022. So this is a follow-up video series that finally came out, but there's some good info in there on demos and just soil health communication. Lastly is an upcoming funding opportunity. I did want to share this because it is very relevant and it's pretty simple funding to get in the funding world. But the American Farmland Trust and Virginia Soil Health Coalition have the Regenerate Virginia Farmer Grants. The whole goal is that they want to be able to fund innovation to help fill gaps where cost share can't reach. And it's up to 30,000 or 50,000, depending if it's a single producer or group of producers. It's going to open up on October 15th. And why does it matter to the agents? It's because it's a pretty simple opportunity. It doesn't require a huge long application or complicated reporting or anything. It's pretty flexible funding, and they really want to encourage extension agents to work with producers to submit applications for this funding. So be looking for that October 15th. With that, I will be done. And I know that was probably maybe longer than my 2 minutes, but hopefully there's some useful stuff in there.
Thanks, Lydia. Well, you got to take Mark Ryder's time too, because you got caught in that conference stuff. So I appreciate it. And I'll say both Joseph and I, we had talked about this yesterday, forgot to mention, if you need access to the small grains preliminary OBT information, we have that PDF that we can share. And we've spoken with Olga and Nick, who weren't able to make the call today, but they have got that in progress. So hopefully it'll be out soon. But in the meantime, we do have that PDF to share if anybody needs it. So I will maybe send that out with this email video and everything like that. But so I believe we do not have our weed scientist able to join us today, but if Dr. Langston and Dr. Zen would like to share some updates on plant pathology.
I'll go after Yuan.
You make me talk first. So for corn, we do see an increased severity of tar spot in Shenandoah County. I think the first meeting I joined, I probably mentioned there is a very low severity level of tar spot. When my student went back 2 weeks ago, some of the plot with irrigation, we do see 12% of the coverage of the tar spot stromata on those leaves. Right now, we are testing some of the chemicals that we did not included last year, and then hopefully we can share that result soon. And for the soybean, I did not see much of the foliar disease this year, Dr. Langston. Frog eye is not on my radar, but soil-borne diseases, SDS, I worked with a couple of the extension agent here, and they have identified growers for us to sample SDS soybean plants. And I recently got some samples from Taylor, not Taylor Clark. And it was diagnosed as Phomopsis stem canker. And some of the sample from the same location also showed Fusarium wilt and the root rot disease. And the mycelium is just fully developed in the root system. So that's from me. Very quick update.
Righty, well, I am seeing a good bit of frog eye at my location. It's on a susceptible variety. I've seen some at some of the field days I've been to. I remember going to Prince George and seeing a good bit in that trial, but it's it's late in the game to try to do anything about it now. In my trials, I am seeing some seeing some good results with fungicides. So I'll have that data available at the winter meetings. Seeing a good bit of SDS as Juan said. Can you share the screen, Carrie?
Yeah, you should be able to, are you not?
Give me a second.
Okay. Let me look at the settings while you're trying.
Maybe not. I don't see my screen up here. Might not be able to do it. Yeah, I don't know. I think I've got an application open or something that's not. It's messing me up. I'm gonna try this one.
Oh,
I think that's the
that,
right. Can you see that?
yes, we can.
So this is just an update on SDS in case anybody hadn't seen it before.
Well, Dr. Langston,
you-
I'll interrupt. We're looking at your laptop screen.
So you're not seeing the picture?
No, we see your desktop.
Okay. Yeah, I don't. Evidently the picture I was trying to share didn't come up. You could go back. I don't need to show the pictures. Really, I had some good pictures of it. But it's showing up like Yuan said. I've seen several outbreaks and collected samples. This is a lot more than we've seen the past couple of years with SDS. So I say we've seen a good bit of a uptick with it. And other than that, besides that and seeing some frog eye leaf spot, and there has been some reports of Cercospora leaf blight that have come in. And normally we don't recommend a fungicide to control Cercospora leaf blight. But that's the pathogen that causes purple seed stain. And that's all I got.
Thank you. All right, well, we'll pass it on to Tim then.
Hey, good afternoon, everybody. I see mostly familiar names here, but if there's anybody I haven't met yet, I'm Tim Bryant. I'm the new field crop entomologist here at the Tidewater AREC. So I just started on August 10th. So I don't have a whole lot to share with you, but we have had a number of soybean field days that I was able to go to. So I've been running my sweep net a little bit. And we also were working with a student at NC State who's working on looking at the species composition of stink bugs in soybeans and how that's shifted over the years. So we've sampled a number of fields here in Suffolk and then out in Greensville County. I visited Taylor Clark in the county just to the west of that, which the name will come to me as soon as I'm done talking, and then a few other field days. So the stink bug pressure has been pretty low in general from what I've seen, at least in this southeastern part of the state. But we did have a pretty good number of loopers here on the station. So we were able to put an insecticide trial for that. And my colleague Dominic Reisig at NC State, I just saw a post from him about this being one of the worst looper years he's seen in recent memory. So I'd be interested to hear how that's gone for our growers throughout the state, but at least from what I've looked at, we had a fair few here on the station. So that's kind of all I have for you.
All right, thanks. Dr. Chappell, do you have any updates to share? If not, if there's any questions from anybody or any other updates from agents, what are y'all seeing across the state? And one of the questions that we got was if any of the agents on the call know of any farmers who used grain cleaning equipment and this is relating back to aflatoxin and Dawn problems. So if anybody on the call has any insight into that, and if they know of anybody who's using those grain cleaning equipment techniques, that would be great to hear from.
As far as grain cleaning, people gave that up when Roundup Ready soybeans came about. They were doing it for weed seed control. So all that stuff's in the bushes and rotted away. I don't know anybody that's trying to clean any. And haven't for a long time. As far as grain to try to clean out cracks and aflatoxin, that's really hard to do. So. But
Yeah, that's what my thought was. And then have y'all heard about several people getting rejected at all because of these aflatoxins, and how's that going across state?
At Purdue, at Tappahannock, their cutoff is 20 parts per billion of aflatoxin, and they've rejected a lot. Same on the Eastern Shore, and some of those producers have hauled it to Waverly, to the Smithfield feed mill. They're taking it up to 200 parts per billion. And I talked to David Jennings, who's the grain buyer at Waverly. He said, as of last week, they had not rejected any corn. It had all been under 200. Some was very close to 200, but they had not rejected any.
That's good to hear.
And very little was, I would say very little was like really under 20. I mean, some is. I'd say very little. He didn't have all the breakdown. I don't know that they're tracking it that well, but I mean, I sent a sample off. Crop insurance agent pulled, and I mean, it was like 0.6 parts per billion. Now I'm sure I got some 100 part per billion in that same grain bin that's going to get mixed together. But it's all over the place. So it's mostly the chicken people are rejecting it because they have 20 parts per billion is all they can feed to poultry. That's the max. Pigs I guess, can go up to 200. Cattle is even higher. So
where do they take that sample from? They mix all the grain from a shipment together and take a representative?
Yeah, so as every tractor trailer load comes in, they'll probe it in at least 2 different places, and you probably get like a gallon worth of grain or a little more from that trailer load, and they use that same sample to check for moisture. Then they'll grade it for damage, crack kernels, etc., and then they'll pull a sample out for aflatoxin, which I haven't seen exactly what they're doing. The buyer described it to me as they're mixing it with some solution, and then you dip a test strip in it. It's like a colorimetric test. So they're generating some kind of numbers. Now it's not like going into a lab, but yep. So that's kind of where the corn, and then we did some test plots. I've never seen so much smut in corn samples. I mean, it was black. I took some pictures of it, and then the variety right beside it that yielded better, and it was pretty corn. So it's very hybrid specific. So. But yeah, go ahead, Jan.
Scott mentioned about the corn smut. In the new market trial that we had, basically the 2 varieties we tested with different treatment. Literally like 90% plants have corn smut there, and the yield was super low. And then he also talked about the toxins in the corn. A grower in New Kent, and this year he has a lot of like fusarium ear rot, and probably the other one looks like aspergillus ear rot to me. And they were concerned about that toxin level in their field too.
And I don't know that they're testing anything but aflatoxin, because you got the Dawn and fumonisin and zearalenone. Nobody's talking about those. They're all talking about aflatoxin. So Tim mentioned loopers. We could always find some. I found more where I sprayed part of a farm. I just sprayed bifenthrin for corn earworm, and then went back, and that's the only place I could find soybean loopers. And they never got bad enough to spray. I watched them for a couple of weeks, and I took $1,200 worth of Intrepid Edge back this morning to return. So luckily I didn't have to spray them again, but that was the most I was finding, but they never ate enough to get concerned. Then the other, from an insect standpoint, I pull my blacklight traps, and it's harder and harder to get parts for blacklight traps like ballast and T8 lamps and stuff like that. So I know Sean had talked about pheromone traps. So sometime between now and next season, need to talk about that. I think if we didn't have black lights, we might could get more people to participate where they didn't have to have electricity. I don't know. It's something to think about over the winter before next season. And we used to have this year it was myself and Sarah Rutherford, and at the T-Rec, we probably used to have 6 to 8 different trap locations from all the way from Warsaw down this direction. So they've kind of disappeared as agents have changed. But I think if we could have something simple, we might could get people back on board. So.
Yeah, we have a new entomologist starting on the Eastern Shore in December. And that actually reminded me. So Carrie put in her email about fall armyworm trapping. So if we were to move to a pheromone trap for the corn earworm network, we could also get fall armyworm lures and publish that data along with the corn earworm data. Because I know there was a lot of folks that were concerned about that this year. But I'll have to look into how far apart those have to be so you don't synergize the two pheromones and get bad trap data.
All right. Well, glad to hear folks are not being rejected for aflatoxins, at least not yet that we know of. And appreciate the update, Scott. That's all good information. If there's any other questions, feel free to ask, and if not, we can always end early on a Friday. So
I guess I had one with you on. How far are y'all going to take the big field? I took y'all to near Stony Creek with the SDS. Are y'all still collecting data there, or is that done? Or
the one with both spore trap and soil sensors?
Yes. So.
I think so. Let me double check, because I think we still need one more visit. Are you planning to have the harvesting soon?
They have not, but those are some earlier soybeans.
Okay.
And I hadn't been by there in at least a month, but they said that SDS was pretty bad across that farm, and that's one I took David to like 2 years or 3 years ago.
The area with the deep slope, that's the area with the most SDS showing up in that field.
Yeah.
And the update about the molecular assay, we did get, it's been a very challenging time for us to recover Fusarium virguliforme, which is a causal agent for SDS. But recently, I requested some of the colleagues from other university to send us the isolate. And another person from University of Missouri also gave us like positive DNA. So we are able to do the real-time PCR to quantify that pathogen level in the soil sample now. So if like growers are worried, they may have a high risk of SCS, but it's also weather dependent. We can do the quick soil test to let them know how much of the inoculum they have in their soil.
Okay.
Yeah, but I will talk to Bello and because I think he put on my calendar. It's sometimes the second week of October, we were planning to go back to get the soil sensor data and soil sample collected. But if we need to modify that, we can go there early.
Okay, I'll check with Chip. And the reason I asked is I went and checked their weather station because it rained somewhere between 2 and 4 inches in that part of that area.
Good.
But the weather station said 5/100ths of an inch. So I didn't know if y'all had pulled the weather station up or not. The rain gauge is not correct. So
I think the weather station and the spot where we put the weather station and the one with the spore trap, they got flooded a couple times. So it's probably messed up with some of the electricity over there.
okay.
Is it a way you can go back and see the season rainfall in your weather station data you want?
Yes. I shared with you the app, right?
Yeah, I have the app, but on it just is the 24-hour rainfall.
You need to go to the website. I will share that website with you and Scott because you can trace all those months data there. The app only allow you to have like a certain access for limited data sets. I will share the app and the login information is the same. I did not change anything.
I'm curious, since we got you on the call, Taylor, if you ended up spraying for the aphids and how that ended up going.
Well, I did spray for them. I guess my calculation was that if it didn't rain, maybe that would have took some of the stress off of the beans. And it didn't rain, but it hadn't rained at all, so it's kind of a moot point, I think. So probably would have been better to follow your recommendation and not done anything.
Yeah, that's what I did. I did not. There were some fields, they were heavy. I mean, you touched the plant and your hand was sticky. I mean, that's how many were there. So I just never went back and looked at them anymore. And they are what they are. So, but
Harry,
I found them. From the point me and Taylor first found them. Coincidence, we were both looking at beans the same time when he called me, and I found them in the same field. But from then on, I could find them everywhere we went. Yeah, so they just came in late. So.
Harry put me in contact with an entomologist at Michigan State, Chris DeFonso, who I think has been around for a while. And she did some of the early work with soybean aphid. She was explaining to me that the 250 aphids per plant was just a nice clean number they came up with before they did the actual research to develop the threshold. So the actual threshold is like 670 or something like that. So I mean that plant can tolerate a whole lot of aphids before it, really starts impacting the yield and stuff like that. So, but it's one of those pests that if the conditions are right, it could explode like that. So it's a tough call to make.
And those conditions would be drier weather, wouldn't it?
Yeah, heavy rain or nice good storm can knock them out. So I think they'd be better off without that.
So I was assuming I might miss the rain that they were calling for then, but I didn't think I was gonna miss all the rain. So We hadn't had hardly anything in my area of the county through any of the last several go rounds. And we got fall army worms, so I think one of our turf guys have sprayed some of the turf production fields 2 times already. In the last 3 weeks. Have in Brunswick we have a kind of new hay producer, and he had some fields of tough, and I think they ruined that. So
Have they had to spray that turf twice because they're not getting good control with whatever they sprayed, or they just
I
built back
think it
up?
was another flight, to be honest with you.
Yeah.
Because I can't remember exactly what Tyler said Buck used, but it should have worked, you know.
Yeah, I found a couple of years ago, I think it was Helen out on the Eastern Shore, and then maybe a grad student or somebody on campus. I mean, the locations were Blacksburg and Painter and Northampton County. But they did do a fall armyworm trapping. This was in 22. Um, so it is something we can do, and it would at least give some advanced warning for, pastures and turf grass, just to be on the lookout for larvae, because you really got to try to get them when they're small. They're pretty hard to kill when you got big old juicy larvae in there.
What year was it that all the lawns and stuff were affected, Scott? 22,
21.
21.
21, and then that's why they did more sampling in 22. I know we were still having Zoom meetings in 21 is when the big outbreak was.
I knew it was a COVID year.
Yep. Yeah, I mean they were everywhere. They ate up. Didn't make no difference what you did. They ate up alfalfa. We had a buddy in Goochland. He cut the alfalfa and then he ate it up in the windrow. After he didn't cut it, they all crawled under the windrow and were eating the windrow of alfalfa while it's still green. So I mean, that was a tough year for the army worms. So
It's the beauty of entomology. It was a bad year in 21. They put all the effort into setting up a trapping network in 22, and then there were none, and then it was abandoned.
yeah, that's how it goes. So.
That's good news to not catch any.
I've got a question on fall armyworm. I know, and this is from my days in Georgia, that there was a correlation between the previous winter and the severity the following year. I know we had a mild winter last year. Tim, do you know, or have you ever heard of a correlation between previous winter? I know all the golf course guys were the ones who were saying that.
Yeah, I haven't heard of that specifically. It might be a different situation in southern Georgia, because maybe if it's a really mild winter, the overwintering range can expand a little bit, and maybe you'd see them earlier in the season. But at least here, and probably North Carolina, South Carolina, they're getting blown in by weather events. We don't see them until late summer, early fall. But if the overwintering range is wider in a milder year, then it may be that, they arrive at more susceptible stages earlier in the year. but I don't know of any. I haven't seen that research specifically.
That makes sense.
All right, well, I'm going to interrupt and say if y'all can, please do take that survey about, if this is helpful and how often we should meet. I mean, one of the biggest questions I have, and maybe we want to talk about it now, is do we want to continue this through the winter? Or maybe this is our last meeting, because at this point in time, there's really not much management decisions that we can make to affect this year's crop, and maybe we need to regroup next spring. And what are y'all's thoughts on that, and if these meetings are helpful?
Yeah, I mean, I think they are, just to get the agents, and especially our newer agents, and if we can get more people involved with it, maybe kind of put out a timeline earlier. I would think I don't think in the winter there's much need, but maybe, if there's something could start with like late with the wheat, maybe April or something like that, and then look at kind of what's going on and kind of get some feedback. I mean, I think it's useful just for people to get together and discuss, see what's going on. So,
All right, that's good to hear. Yeah, I mean, for right now, kind of looking ahead, I'm not envisioning much updates for the next few months, but we could definitely start again in April and give more of a warning and a finalized schedule, and kind of continue to do this for next summer, if that's going to be something that's beneficial.
yeah, this is a new effort, so I wouldn't abandon it. I would give it a try into next year and see. And like I said, just we'll try to get some more people involved with it. And like I said, I think it's useful just to have it, talk about the research and get on people's radar screen about what's going on. So
Sounds good. Well, I appreciate that, and that sounds like a good plan. So I'll plan on getting these up and running again springtime next year. With that, thanks everybody for joining. I appreciate the support and the questions and all of that. So I hope everybody has a great weekend, and we'll stay in touch as we can. I'm excited to hear how everyone's harvest goes. I am optimistic for soybeans, at least, that we've still got a good crop out there, but time will tell. So
yeah, we discussed that. We had a peanut maturity clinic at Wakefield this morning, so they're optimistic with peanuts, from what was dug and brought in. I mean, they look to be, I don't know that we don't have a record crop because it's dry. I heard them early, but the peanuts, cotton, soybeans, there's potential there. So yeah,
it's all we can ask for at this point in time.
yeah, that's all. But then everybody's talking about the tropical system down the Gulf. So yeah, that kind of puts a damper on the cotton and peanuts, if that gets active again. So
Yeah, I'm a little concerned about that. I saw some pictures come out of Arkansas from the tropical storm they had come up the Gulf Coast, and they already had soybeans sprouting from the pods and cotton sprouting from the bolls. So that is, hopefully we won't see much of that, but time will
But just
tell.
don't tell Hunter about that.
yeah.
Don't tell Hunter.
All right.
All right. Well, thanks everybody. Have a good weekend.
Bye.